got knocked out of the playoffs, or didn't even make the cut? Well, the season ain't over for you just yet. If you're in a keeper or dynasty league, I got 10 names you might want to stash that are sitting out on your waivers today.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source for fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Matthew Wane. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit the bell below to subscribe to the channel and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. Also, please, if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you're getting that audio source, make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review. It really helps out the show, and make sure to hit that subscribe button as well. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and you can bet $5, and if your first bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. All right, look, I do this episode every year. All right, I play in keeper leagues, I play in dynasty leagues, and sometimes people run in these positions where I don't have the roster spots, and I can't hold on to these names, and they're names that are irrelevant. They're done for the season. They're not back until the middle of next year, but they're names that if you're in a position where they're either going to be an instant contributor to your team next year, or you're in a position where you're going to be able to just either keep it because your team sucks and you need some more fuel for talent, or you're in a position where, okay, this person is just going to be more valuable to you than anything else, and you'd rather hold out for them, right? We've had guys like that, like Strider last year, and others that kind of pan out and some don't. Like you can end up with a Shane McClanahan, who forecast is on the show at some point. But I'll start it off like this, and I'll give you a little tease. So I got guys that you probably haven't thought about in a while, guys that went down for the season that will be starting the season, and a pitcher that started off the year with TJ and that is not going to be back until the start of next year, and that is Garrett Cole of the New York Yankees. Unfortunately, Garrett Cole went down to TJ, unfortunately. That happened quite some time ago, unfortunately. At this point, he's going to be due back on, April 1st, which is pretty much opening weekend, which is great. He's out there in leagues. Quite honestly, he's probably sitting out there. A lot of people couldn't hold him. Obviously, he was irrelevant for the season. Even in dynasty leagues, like he was a guy you probably should have traded for earlier. But once the season ends, you could probably still get a fair deal. He's older, so he's going to come at a discount. Obviously, being 35 years old, he's no spring chicken. Degrades his value. Also, returning off TJ, you don't know what the outcome's going to be, and these are all talking points. I think he's going to be just fine. But ultimately, these are the kind of angles that you're going to be playing with your opposition to try and acquire Garrett Cole. He might be out there in waivers. Like, for instance, you're in a keeper league. We only keep anywhere from 5 to 8 players. And, the rest, then you just redraft the rest. Cole is actually a great stash. I mean, I'm pretty sure if you get 75 to 85% of Cole, of who he's been his entire career, then he's probably better than some of the options you probably have that you were thinking about keeping anyway. And he's worth the shot at that point. So I'm going to go out there. I'm going to stash him at that point and see if I can, keep him into the next year. Some people just hold on to him. Cough, cough, my friend Jay. I hope you tie this week. But ultimately, they hold on him all season, and then, they just clog up that IL spot, but they don't care because they know the value of Cole and they've had him for a long time. They're just not going to give him up. And it's kind of the thought process. But some people, you don't have that luxury. You get murdered with IL stints, and you have to. You can't start, hang on to somebody that's going to be on the IL for the whole season, and you have to keep viable options to play every week. Otherwise, you don't win. You're only playing for the next season and what ifs. So yeah, that's where I stand on Garrett Cole. I think you should add him 100% because Garrett Cole is just going to be a monster. Let's move on. Let's talk about Justin Steele. Obviously, another starting pitcher. Justin Steele plays for the starting pitcher for the Chicago Cubs. He's due back like the second week of April. Estimated return as of right now is April 15th. That could slide, obviously, to the right or to the left, depending on his progress. But, spring is going to be very telling if he's starting to throw the last 2 weeks of spring. Then I say that we're right on trajectory and he just misses one time to the rotation, maybe two at most. But I'm still not mad at that. So 100%, I want to stash him. Look, Steele, honestly, look, we look at what he did in 25, and yeah, it was not impressive, but obviously TJ was on the horizon. So it is what it is. But the year before was definitely the reason why I was kind of, well, last 3 years, honestly, were kind of like the strong point of why I wanted him essentially. Last year, 134 innings pitched, 135 strikeouts, a 307 ERA, a 110 whip, fantastic. Year before, 173 innings, a 306 ERA, and then 22, a 318 ERA through 119 innings. Like, he's done it 3 years in a row. Okay. He's shown out that he can do these things. He's going to be only 30 next year, and 30 is a good age for a pitcher. They're in their prime, in my opinion, and they're wiser and they just know what works and what doesn't, and they just stay successful if they've been successful. So for me, I want to get my hands on Steele. This is more of like, okay, he isn't your number one keeper option or two, but like, you're in a points league where, pitching is, weighed heavier and he's out there and you have, you know, the ability to choose between him and a bat, but honestly, he'll be more if pitching points are skewed higher, then Steele is more valuable than that hitter. Even in roto leagues and head-to-head leagues, like, okay, maybe you don't have the pitching options that you think you have, and maybe you're starting to doubt some of those players and those talent. Add them now, make the decision later. Also, too, if your leagues allow off-season trading, these are the perfect guys too that you can add now and then trade in off season for other assets, whether it's another player, um, auction dollars, um, draft picks, picks, prospects themselves. If you go that deep, right, you got not just rookie, but you got full blown minor leagues officers. I play in a league like that. It's fun as hell. I recommend it. But like, those are the kind of things you can kind of do to kind of manipulate how you get these guys, how you increase your odds of winning and building your team up, not just like having these guys and planning on keeping them, but utilizing the asset to then therefore, you know, improve your team at some way, shape, or form. So there's a lot of angles to own these guys. Okay. Now let's move on. This one's a little bit different. So this is Austin Riley of obviously the Atlanta Braves, third baseman. Austin Riley went down. He's not due back to start of spring training, dealing with that abdomen injury. This year was not that great for him either. We'll review him real quick. 416 at bats, 54 runs, 20 doubles, a triple, 16 bombs, 54 ribs, and batted, 260. Okay. This isn't like the Austin Riley at 23, 22. And therefore, he's worth the shot and he might actually be out there. People probably dropped him if they were a playoff team. It's a little rough. We've had a rough go at it for 2 years in a row, even with the downsizing of the at-bats being of injury. The pace isn't great. The pace isn't the 117 runs. It isn't even really the 90 runs. It's probably like 80 to the 80 to 85 range. The home run pace is definitely not there. The ribby pace is definitely, kind of on par of 80, 85. And the batting average is in the toilet. It's not like that 280, 270 at that point. 260 is all right, but it isn't 270, 280. These are things that suck. OPS obviously has gone down over the last 2 years, going from 861 and has always had a good OPS since 2021. And then last year, 783, which isn't atrocious, but now getting down to 737. There's some negative regression going on as he gets going into his age 29 season, and 2 years back to back being injured. So there's some negative knocks, which, kind of comes at a risk, but I believe in Austin Riley, the talent, and therefore I'm willing to bank on him. So I'm going to try and trade for him in dynasty leagues. He's out there on waivers. I'm going to add him for my keeper leagues because he's going to be better, and third baseman's really, really skimpy. So to go into this season with Austin Riley, with being able to see him for a full spring training before I even have to make a decision, it's kind of like a no-brainer for me, let alone, too, he's going to be a great trade asset, even if you have an awesome third baseman and you don't have the room for Austin Riley. So just add him and then see what you can do with it later. And you don't have to make that decision until almost the start of the season or until your, trade trade deadline opens. So ultimately, perfect guy to add right now. But yeah, so coming up next, I got Tristan Casas, a name that we really haven't even talked about in a long time. Guy's disappointed, but might have some upside. And if he has a good spring, he might be worth keeping. And that's all coming up next, and how I feel about him coming up next. You've probably seen millions of ads for hair growth products, which I need. Um, and sure, like that's like that actually works, right? That's probably your thought process. And then nothing works anymore. It's all just a scam. But there's so many products out there that it's hard to know which one is actually going to do anything. It's the truth, right? You don't know which one's a scam, which one's not, and that's why you should give Nutrafold a close look. Nutrafold is the number one dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. And it's not just the hype, right? Like, I'm not also just spitting out here speaking gibberish. It's awesome. This supplement clinically tested that targets the roots causes of the thinning and shedding of proactive approach, right? Whether you're at work or at a friend's house or even just getting ready in the morning, Nutrafol gives you more confidence in your daily routine. And you can feel good about knowing that Nutrafol is NSF certified, backed by peer-reviewed studies. See thicker, stronger hair and with less shedding in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering Locked On MLB listeners $10 off your first month subscription and a free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code Locked On MLB. And look, little inside tick. I like being bald, so I'm never going to get my hair back. But my brother was thinning, and it worked for him. So don't sleep on it. Nutrafol. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for kickoff. And you don't want to miss out on this offer. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your first $5 bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building same game parlays, or even just jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye out on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little bit more energy to Sundays. So you ready to play? Download FanDuel app now and visit FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. Place your first $5 bet today. All right. Look, you want a little bit more than what we offer in this 30-minute podcast? Check out the Insider Track. We're going to help you out this week. Stick around when it's all off season. Now you're going to be able to get all our rankings and et cetera. That's going to be coming out as we get closer to the new year. There's so much stuff that's going to help you get an advantage on your 2026 opponents. And if you're in the championship, might as well take advantage. I'm giving you a free 2 weeks. Links in the description below. All right, let's get back into it. All right. So I mentioned Tristan Casas at the top here, right before the break. And Casas, you're probably looking at me like, why would I want this dude, right? He can't stay healthy. Literally, he can't stay healthy. Played 63 games in 24, 29 this year, 132 in 23. Like, it's bad that he hasn't even played a full season yet, let alone he hasn't done even over 100 games in 2 years. So, like, there is a lot of speculation. Plus, the last 2 years have been ugly. Batted 241 and 182. Now, with Casas, I'm taking it with a grain of salt. I'm going to add him for fun. But there's upside. It's not just like a fun move, right? There is some strategy to adding Casas. Real simple. If spring looks really good and you have no other better options out there, Casas is an add. Casas might be a keep. Also, too, great trading asset, even in keeper leagues. Sometimes people emphasize age. Tristan Casas, right now, 25 years old. Still a lot of career in front of him. We don't know actually what his story is. The talent's there, just the health hasn't been. He's literally like on the same pace as Alberto Montesia in these regards. It sucks. But if he makes a team next year, which I believe he should, looking at just right now. 2, if he's cranking in spring, there's going to be a lot of options if you have off-season trading, even just an option to keep him. So Casas is an upside, maybe add play that I think will work for you in the long run. Better have him on your roster now. than some Joe Schmo pitcher that you're definitely not even looking at. This time of the year, I literally don't care about what my roster looks like because I'm out of it at this point if I am. Or it's that Sunday and I saved an ad or two for this purpose specifically. So I do this every year and I majorly benefit every year. This is just a strategy that I've employed every year and it works. So trust me, do it. Even the Casases of the world don't really matter. Okay. This next guy here is a dynasty play only. So I don't know if anybody remembers him, but Drew Thorpe. Drew Thorpe is a guy that we haven't seen in a while. Went down to TJ, actually not expected to return until May 1st. If you're not familiar with who Drew Thorpe is, he was a great pitching prospect, was on the Yankees, got traded and bounced around. Now is on the Chicago White Sox. Oh, great. Chicago White Sox pitcher, right? Yeah, well, let's really dive into that, right? Well, when he got the call, he looked good in a lot of starts. Then things started to implode, and then he had TJ. So we never really got to see the true story of him. I feel like he might have bounced back, but TJ kind of just did it. But he had a lot of good starts out there. And I like Thorpe. I think he has really good stuff. Not the hardest thrower, but has really good control. On top of that, you look at his minor league career and you look at the statistics. He hasn't had a season a season where his ERA was over 3 ever in the minors. He also didn't have a season where the last 2 seasons in the minor, 23 and 24, were under 2 ERA, a 1.48 and a 1.35. Great control pitcher. Whip was always fantastic. So I think there was more to the story and just an adjustment. And he may not be the biggest, K per inning guy. He was in 23, but again, short sample size. But in 24, before getting the call, he was right under it, like 4 Ks under 60 innings pitched. So he was right under that K per inning. And didn't really translate at all. It got worse as he got into the bigs, but to be expected with a kind of pitcher like that, it takes them like a year or two to really figure out how to get that mojo, or it just might have just been that year. We don't know. It got cut short. So I'm going to try and acquire him because he's been sitting on somebody's team and they're probably like, oh, whatever, I'll take whatever for him. I don't really remember him. There's no sex appeal because we haven't seen him in a while. So why not go out there and try and trade for Drew Thorpe and see if I can hone in and capitalize on a forgotten, valuable fantasy dynasty asset, right? Like those are the kind of guys I'm going out there and trying to acquire. So Drew Thorpe, I'm adding him to see what I can try and get in the offseason. He might even be out on your waiver wires because they didn't want to stash him on the IL. So Drew Thorpe must stash for dynasty leagues, not for a keeper or anything like that. We'll just draft him with the last pick of the draft because everybody's forgetting about him. Probably even a waiver wire ad. But anyway, let's keep it going. Chris Bubic. Now, Chris Bubic was having a season until he went down. Went down with that shoulder injury, and unfortunately, it crushed the whole season. He was one of the top pitchers this year. 116 innings pitched, 116 strikeouts, a 2.55 ERA, a 1.18 WHIP. Looked fantastic, especially through 20 starts. He was good last year in a short stint, and just finally, things are starting to click for him over the last 2 years at age 26 and 27. He's still young and hitting his prime years, in my opinion. So for me, I'm adding Bubic. I'm going to stash him. I'm going to see what kind of performance he's going to put out when he comes back in spring training. He's due back, February 1st. Perfect, just in time for pitchers and catchers to report. We're going to get eyes on him. We're going to see what the velo looks like. We're going to see what the command looks like. We're going to see how he's adjusting after dealing with the shoulder injury. It's not like it's Tommy John where like we have to worry about the control really being gone. We just got to see if he can make it through the rotations and the ramp up to make it to the season. And in those aspects, I'm going to keep the guy that was on pace to be one of the best pitchers in the league this year at a K per inning and a sub-3 ERA through a massive amount of workload, 118 innings. That is a guy I want to stash. So Chris Bubic is a mustache. Go out and do that now because not only is he young, but he's also a performer. So please do yourself a favor and add Chris Bubic. I think this one is a no-brainer. Coming up next, we got a little bit more of the old guys and names we probably don't want to hear. It's going to get a little ugly, but these are names that actually might be valuable come down the stretch. Coming up next. Okay. There's nothing better like catching a baseball game live. The energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person. But actually getting tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees, it takes all the fun out of it. That's why I use Game Time. Game Time app gives you an advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by Game Time's guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time at the best prices. Plus, all fees are included. So you'll see your price up front that you pay and no surprises at checkout. It's super simple. I can even see the view from my seat. Make sure I'm not sitting behind that pole. It's just wonderful. And they got this cool thing going on, zone deals, right? You pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets in the past. Download Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that promo code is LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go and download Game Time today. All right, we are on the latter half, and I got some names. Not the prettiest, but I promise some names. So let's start off with Nathan Eovaldi. Nathan Eovaldi obviously went down to injury. Won't be back until, obviously February 1st. That shoulder injury took him out, unfortunately. It is what it is. So here's the deal. He pitched 130 innings this year, and he was pretty awesome. A 1.73 ERA. To have that ERA, do that many innings, amazing. To boot, he was right under the K per 9. 130 innings pitched, 129 strikeouts. Beautiful. The whip was at 0.85. He was having an amazing year at age 35. Now, he didn't have TJ. He only had to deal with the shoulder. If I have to deal with health next year, I'm okay with it. It is what it is. So hopefully it's not season ending. I'm going to add him. I mean, where are you going to tell me you're going to be able to add a pitcher that puts up those kind of numbers? Straight up, you look at it and it's like, okay, cool. Even the last couple of years, 3.8 ERA, not the greatest, but still not bad. 3.63 ERA, not bad. Been up and down, but in the sub 4 category. But this last year was elite. Now, I'm not saying to keep him. You can. I might, depending on how bad my team is. And it's an asset you should be looking at if your team is that bad. But also, too, you can also trade to those really bad teams in the offseason. You can do that. And it'll make way more sense for you. You're going to get an asset that is going to be actionable and more contribution, but you might also give up the asset that could contribute, but at the same time, likely hitting 50-50. But I think it's worth it. Build off that hype, and capitalize on that value. That is what baseball is all about. And the offseason is the perfect time to make deals. I'm a deal maker. I am one of the most annoying people during the preseason. I start talking about baseball. I mean, I talk about baseball here, but I start talking to my fantasy league mates probably end of December, start trying to make deals while people still don't remember things. Well, I'm still fresh in the brain because I do this every day. But this is what you do. And this is how you snag them. Trading Nathan Eovaldi with the effects of, wow, that year before he got hurt. Ooh, maybe it's repeatable. Is it? Maybe. Even 75% I'll still probably take. Not worth a keeper for me, but the really bad teams that are trying to build back that need a contribution, perfect. Do it. Points leagues, he becomes more valuable, especially the ones that are pitcher leaning. There's leagues like that. I played them and they suck, but that's why I play Roto. But it definitely comes into a place. So Nathan Eovaldi, somebody you definitely need to consider, at least just adding and stashing for the season. All right, let's move on. A guy I haven't thought about in so long. Joe Musgrove. Another starting pitcher. A big starting pitcher episode. San Diego Padres, Bubic, right at the start of spring training. Hasn't pitched since 2024. 2024 was kind of up and down and ugly. Finished with a 3.88 ERA. Not the normal Joe Musgrove. He's always been, a picture of awesomeness. Funny enough, he's only going to be 33 this year. So I'm kind of not turned off. He's always been a good pitcher, been a good pitcher for a while. Now we are dealing with TJ. I don't know offhand if it's his second one or not. I don't think so. If it is, please just comment in the thing below. But, you know, I'll do a deeper dive after this, and we'll kind of do a follow-up mid-off season. But, like, ultimately, he's worth the stash because his name definitely carries weight. He's definitely a guy I'm definitely not keeping, but he's a guy that I'm going to try and trade away and get anything for him. He's out there in your if you have him in Dynasty, it's probably more valuable to move him and get some assets. But do that as spring training, as we're hearing positive reports about him. Unless they're completely real, and then maybe hang on to them if you're in a dynasty league. But in a keeper league where, again, you're not keeping your whole team, Joe Musgrove is somebody that you're going to want to try and move and see if you can get an asset for. It's a perfect guy to do it with. Now let's move on. So about Luis Robert. This season's just disappointing. One, I thought he was going to have a better year. Definitely falling in my rankings. But in dynasty and keeper leagues, people are still ageists. He's only 28 years old next year. And, the end of the season was actually enticing until he got hurt. He was actually really starting to bring it on. And, there's still that lingering, will he get traded or not? And if he goes to a better team, etc. So for me, I want to add him. I want to see how the spring training looks. And if my outfield situation kind of sucks, then I will keep him. He's still going to be probably like a top 46 outfielder. So if you play in like a 4 outfield league, like it's kind of like a deal. Or if your outfield is ugly, or if you just don't have enough hitter keepers, perfect guy to kind of slide in with the upside. Steals bases, hits home runs, should hit for average. Just don't look at this year. Luis Robert, we're 2 years removed now from a guy that, cranked out 38 home runs, and batted 264 and stole 20 bags, stole 33 bags in this season. So, I mean, it's not like he didn't show off the speed. So he has upside. And I think that, he's just one season away from proving he's elite, but he's going to come at a discount. I'm willing to just add him and see if it'll be there for me next year and just kind of go from there and just reassess my team. But just add him. I'd rather have him on my team than worry about not getting him in the draft. So Luis Robert, just add speculative. Why not? Why not? Perfect guy for this. And this one's ugly. Worst one of them all. Shane McClanahan couldn't even make it back on the mound. Now, after coming back from from TJ, dealing with triceps. Second TJ, dealing with tricep injuries, but was looking great in spring. Was looking good until he got shut down. Velo was looking good. Every report I saw was positive until I was, boom, my tricep. I was hyped for him to come back. He was just looking dominant in spring and all that stuff. And you know what? There's still a world where he can do it. Still a world where he can come back and be awesome. Shane McClanahan is literally 28 years old, going to be 29 next year. He's still young. And we can see the possibilities. So let's just add him, see how it looks in spring, and then make a decision. Or at least that he's not going to be kept by somebody else. Or you can trade him for somebody that's a real believer and get some serious assets. Because if he's having a mega spring, I can't even tell. I stashed him last year. Obviously, I dealt with the bull this year. But the offers I was getting in the offseason, I probably should have took. I was getting some good offers, like fair ones, because people believe. I mean, Shane McClanahan was a great pitcher. And if he didn't get TJ, he would be drafted as a top 10 pitcher. No question. He was on that pace. He was looking stellar. So the name really does carry weight, even with all the frustration. Obviously, don't go to the guy that owned him last year, but go to the other teams. See what can happen. Shane McClanahan could be a value next year as a keeper. So I'm trying to add him and stash him for the next year. All right. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me. And please like, subscribe, comment, rate, review, and do everything you can to share this show. And thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. For your second listen, check out the new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get your local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Peace out, guys.